A lot of people are asking the same question right now. Is AI going to replace my job? And I think this is the wrong question.
Because what's actually happening is more subtle and honestly, it's more interesting. AI is not replacing jobs, it's replacing parts of jobs. And if you don't see those parts, you miss where the real leverage is. Because the goal is not just to use AI, it's to understand where it actually creates impact in your work. And most people completely miss that. They look at AI and think, can it do my job? But that's not how real work is structured. A job is not one thing, it's a combination of core skills, organization, communication, repetitive tasks, small decisions, and these don't have the same value. Some parts are critical, others are just friction, and AI doesn't need to change everything to replace everything. So instead of staying abstract, let me show you something concrete. Let's take a job that seems completely non-AI at first glance, a restaurant. At first, it sounds obvious. AI can't cook, AI can't serve customers, so you might think this has nothing to do with AI. But that's exactly where most of people are wrong. When you think about a restaurant, you think about cooking, serving, maybe managing staff. That's the visible part, but that's not the full job. If you look at what actually happens day to day, it's much broader than that. A restaurant also has to manage reservations, answer customer messages, update menu and specials, deal with reviews, post on social media, coordinate with suppliers, organize staff schedules. And none of this is optional. It's part of the work. In fact, a big part. And if you look closely, these tasks have something in common. They are repetitive, structured, predictable. They don't require creativity every time. They don't require deep expertise every time. But they still take time. And most importantly, they take attention. And this is where things start to shift, because this is exactly the type of work AI is good at. Not the core skill, everything around it. And when you start seeing work like this, you stop asking, can AI do my job? And you start asking, which parts of my work don't need to be done manually anymore? That's a completely different way of looking at it. And that's where the real leverage is. Let's make this more concrete. Imagine a simple week, and you are running this restaurant. And every week you go through the same cycle. You check reservations. Some come from different platforms, some by messages, some by phone. You answer customer questions, opening hours, menu details, special requests. You update the menu, or at least think about it. You rewrite a few descriptions. You read reviews one by one, and you try to understand what people liked and what they didn't. You try to post something online, an Instagram post, a story, something to stay visible. You adjust the staff schedule based on availability, busy day, last minute changes. None of these tasks are complicated, but they keep coming back every week, and each time you start from zero. You rethink the same thing, rewrite similar messages, reorganize the same information. It's not just time consuming, it's mentally heavy, because your attention is constantly switching from one small task to another. And at the end of the week, you've spent hours on this, but nothing really improved. You just kept things running. And that's an important distinction, because running something, it's not the same as improving it. And most people stay stuck there, not because they lack tools, but because they never rethink the system. Now, let's say you start using AI. You've seen the tools, you've heard it can save time, so you try few things. You ask AI to write an Instagram caption. It works, it's faster. Then you use it to answer a customer messages. Also helpful. Maybe you generate a menu description or rewrite something quickly. So yes, you gain a little bit of time. But if you step back, nothing really changed. You are still jumping from one task to another, reacting instead of anticipating, and starting from scratch most of the time. AI just becomes a faster way to do the same work, but not a different way to work. And this is where a lot of people stop. They think, okay, AI helps, but they never reach real leverage because the structure of their work is exactly the same. And if the structure doesn't change, the results won't change much either. Instead of asking, where can AI help me? Start asking, how does this workflow actually work? Break it down step by step. Where does it start? What repeats? What decisions are always the same? Because once you see the structure, you can change it. For example, customer messages. Instead of replying every time, you identify the patterns. Opening hours, reservation, menu questions, and you create a simple system. You define standard answers once and use AI to adapt them when needed. Now, you are not writing messages anymore. You are using a structure. Same for content. Instead of thinking, what should I post this week? You define a few formats: dish highlights, behind the scenes, customer moment, and AI helps you generate variations. No more starting from zero. Same for reviews. Instead of reading everything manually, you collect them and you ask AI, what are the main patterns this week? Now, you don't just read feedback, you understand it and you can act on it. Same idea for scheduling. You define constraints, availability, busy hours, roles, and AI suggests a first version. You just adjust. So the shift is simple. You stop using AI task by task and you start building small systems around your work. And that's where things change. At this point, something important happens. You are not just saving a few minutes here and there. You are changing how the work flows. Before, everything was manual, fragmented, reactive. Now it becomes structured, repeatable, lighter. Instead of spending 8 to 10 hours on all these tasks, maybe it becomes 5 or 6. That's 3 to 4 hours saved every week. But more importantly, your mental load drops. You are not constantly switching context. You are not rethinking the same things again and again. You are operating from a system, and that changes how you feel about the work. Because now you have space to improve, space to think, space to focus on what actually matters. And notice something very important. Nothing about the core job changed. The restaurant still cooks, still serves, still creates an experience. That's still human. What changed is everything around it. And that's exactly where AI creates the most value. And this is not about restaurants. This applies to almost every job, because almost every job has repetitive tasks, communication, organization, small decisions, and that's exactly where AI is useful.
So the real question is not, will AI replace me? It's, what parts of my work are replaceable?
So here is something simple you can do. Take one task you do every week, break it down into steps and ask yourself, what is repetitive, what is manual, what is predictable? That's where your leverage is. And if you want to go further, you can literally ask AI, here is a task I do regularly. You describe it, break it down and suggest how to simplify, automate or standardize it. Start here, because that's how you move from AI is interesting to AI actually changes how I work. If you are trying to use AI more intentionally in your work, you can subscribe. That's what I am exploring here.